San Antonio, Texas, the second largest city in Texas, just behind Houston and ahead of Dallas. But why does San Antonio feel so much smaller than Dallas? Let's get into it. You see, San Antonio has pretty large city limits, coming in at 499 square miles. And at a population at just over 1.5 million people, it has an average density of 3,100 people per square mile, meaning San Antonio is a relatively low density city. So how is San Antonio really bigger than Dallas? Well, just like with the Jacksonville, Florida scenario, this is just a technicality. And that technicality being drawn down to simply city limits, which honestly are completely irrelevant when it comes to measuring or much less comparing cities. I think in 2026, we all understand that major metropolitan areas always outgrow the core city's city limits, because the only edge that San Antonio has over Dallas is just how large its city limit boundaries are. Again, with San Antonio's city limits coming in at 499 square miles, Dallas comes in at 340 square miles. But I think it's clear by now that urban areas are not confined to the core city's city limits. And as someone who's traveled the world for a living in past years and has even lived in the Dallas area, you can drive from Arlington to Plano and through Dallas and not really know when and if you've entered Dallas or when you've left it. Because as you can see here, it's really all one city in reality. And another thing worth noting is that Dallas city limits are much denser than San Antonio city limits. And so the only reason why San Antonio beats Dallas in population is because it's measured over a much larger area. And again, city limits are only drawn for government purposes. They don't actually dictate or measure how large a city or an urban area really is. For instance, let's say you were to give Dallas the exact same size city limits as San Antonio, without building onto the city, without adding residents whatsoever, just changing the invisible government boundaries, Dallas would have a population of nearly 2 million people versus San Antonio having just 1.5 million. Meaning if we measured or compared cities not by invisible government boundaries, but just simply by how large the urban area around it is, or how many people existed within a certain mile radius of that core city, Dallas absolutely mops the floor with San Antonio. And I've added a simple graphic here just for the sake of comparison. So what you're looking at are both of these cities and their urban areas outlined, with the San Antonio metropolitan area outlined in red and the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex area outlined in blue. And as you can see, it's really not even close. And while many people might say, well, this isn't fair because the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex also includes cities like Fort Worth and Arlington. And that is correct and a fair point, but does it really matter if you can drive from the westernmost side of Fort Worth to the easternmost side of Dallas without ever leaving the city? But just for the sake of my argument, let's actually remove Fort Worth and those regions completely out of the conversation. Let's say you were to draw a perfect 20-mile radius around both downtown Dallas and downtown San Antonio. Who would contain more people? For the Dallas example, this radius would contain over 4 million people. And that's with many Dallas area suburbs like Frisco, Prosper, and McKinney completely missing from this radius, by the way. So we're kind of already giving San Antonio an edge here. And with that same radius again drawn over the San Antonio area, first of all, this completely envelops the entire San Antonio metropolitan area. That radius would contain just 2.4 million people. That's about 1.5 million less people than the same radius drawn around the Dallas area. So while on paper, by a technicality, is San Antonio larger than Dallas? Yes. However, I don't think anyone visiting both of these cities would ever come to the conclusion that San Antonio is the larger city. And when you consider just how meaningless city limit metrics really are in regards to population or really comparing cities, I think ever making the statement that San Antonio is a larger city than Dallas is not entirely true. But what do you think? And with that being said, guys, this has been another episode of Urban Corner. If you enjoy watching content where we break down, discuss, and even compare major cities from all across the world, make sure to drop a follow and stay tuned. Tons of content on the way. I'll see you guys next time.